This is the January 20th, 2022 Mare Cognitum virtual chapter meeting for the Moon Society. This is our agenda for the evening. Go pretty quick. All right, let's go over some news for the Society. One, we now got full control over Lunar Resources Company and Artemis Society International Bank accounts. For those of you who don't have the full backstory, the Moon Society was created by the Lunar Resources Company and Artemis Society back in 2000. Since then, both TLRC and ASI have gone completely defunct. It's been at least over a decade before either of them have had any activity. So a couple of years ago, we bought out the shareholders, and now we have control over their intellectual assets. And now I have control through the Moon Society over the bank accounts. It involved a whole lot of wrangling with PNC. So now we're trying to figure out what the future of both of these organizations are going to be. And, members are welcome to, throw their 2 cents in as to what they think we should be doing with them. Lunar Resources Company was going to build hardware and actually fly missions to the moon. Unfortunately, most of their technology that they wanted to use is now obsolete. I mean, they planned on using the space shuttle. So most of those plans would have to be completely reworked from the ground up. But we haven't. The next thing is that we have an open seat on the board of directors. So if a member wants to throw their hat in for that, feel free to get on Slack and let us know. Basically, you have to be a member for a year, and you have to be willing to at least show up for the monthly board meetings. We'd like you to do more, but that's the bare minimum. We're still working on our new vision, mission, and values. We've got some good ideas. If you want to help us finish this thing up, you can join us in Slack. Jesse Horn, one of our members, is working on modernizing the website. Again, if you're interested in helping out, you can contact him in Slack. We're starting to plan for Lunar Development Conference 2022. That'll be in June, probably, hopefully. But if we don't get some volunteers, we're probably not going to have it. So if you want to see LDC happen again this year, help out. And finally, Slack is where we do most of our conversations. This is where we do our planning, we run our business. So if you want to be involved in the Moon Society, get on Slack, say hi in comments, start conversations, get involved. All right, some leadership and volunteer opportunities. We have a ton of them. We need people to join. We need people to volunteer. We need people to lead. We need people to start and run projects. So these are just some of the opportunities. I want to point out that I'm going to run this virtual chapter until June. Somebody needs to take over if you want to have a July meeting. So feel free, if you're interested, to let me know. I'll run you through it, how to do it. It's very easy. I have all the protocols down, and you can take over. I'm treasurer, but I'm looking for an assistant treasurer, not so much to help me out with the work, but to learn the processes so that you can eventually take over as treasurer when my term comes up in 2023. All right, tonight, Dr. Margasahayam, did I just say that right?
Close, Margasahayam.
Margasahayam, sorry. Is going to teach us about life's leadership lessons from the Apollo program. He's a foreign national tour guide and global space ambassador with the Kennedy Space Center. All right, so take it away, Dr. Ravi.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. Really appreciate for inviting us. And as I said, I've given lectures for one person in the room as well as 1,000 or 5,000 people. So it's always fun to be part of the whole program, So with that, I just wanted to just welcome all of our guests and maybe future guests who will see me on YouTube or whatever.
Yep, the
So let's
thousands that
start.
are-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's start the lecture. As I said, it's going to be a short one, and basically the idea is really to not to talk about the entire moon program. I was not part of that. I was not even in America at that time, you know. So basically, I'm just going to give you an overview of what I know about the moon program. But what I know about Kennedy Space Center is much, much more than that, because I launched 100 space shuttles. So let's why is it not moving?
You see how it has the pull down over here on the left? Just click somewhere in the NASA to get rid of that, I think.
Oh, oh, okay.
There you go. Now you should be able to
Oh,
forward.
there you go. Yeah, got it. Got it. Okay. So basically, when Ben asked me to talk, it was important that, we can all go to Google and other places, Wikipedia, and get a lot of information about NASA landing man on moon in 1969 and all that. So really, my goal was to talk about what we learned from the moon program, as well as shuttle and other things. As I said earlier, I was not part of the Apollo program, but I know everything because I've worked in the same launch pads where man went to moon. I was in charge of those, and I've been working at Kennedy Space Center for the last 30 years. So brief outline of my presentation, talk a little bit about rockets, red glare, Sputnik, the moon race, JFK's vision and stuff like that. So really, these are just a prelude to what I want to talk about, just to impress upon you that there are other things which many people may or may not know. Then we really go into failures, successful failures and success. But really, I want to touch upon the leadership lessons, both for leaders like tomorrow you want to become a leader, or you want to become an engineering manager or something like that. So this is what I want to talk about it today. So if you go back to the founding of America, 1776, Tipu Sultan, one of the kings in India, maybe 70 or 60 miles away from my college or university in India, he fought the British, and then the British were surprised to see rockets flying over them, over their soldiers in India. And they collected some of these rockets and they brought it over to London to, reverse engineer. And there was this colonel called Congreve. So this guy reverse engineers the whole thing. And then when, America was at war with Britain, they bombed, the shores of America. At that time, Francis Key Scott looked at all these, rockets coming over the fort, McHenry, and he said, rockets red glare, but the flag is still standing, and he wrote the national anthem about it. So really, those two events were totally connected. And today, this picture stands in NASA Wallops field in Virginia, basically. And it's a very interesting thing, which talks about rocketry from China coming to India and then coming into America. But that was not the route, NASA was developed. So I just want to give you where the rockets red glare came in US national anthem, which is not many people know this, Now we know all about Goddard. He launched the first liquid rocket engines. He ushered the United States into the space age, basically, and stuff like that. There are many naysayers, but he did what he did, basically. Really, Von Braun was the father of the Apollo rocket, the V2 rocket. He was brought over from Germany, as you know, from CIA operation called Operation Paperclip. We got the Russians got some people, and Americans got some people, and we got the cream of the cream. Also, we got the equipment. which all was brought back to America to start the V2 program. That's a nice photo of Earth taken by V2. That was first picture actually from a human-launched rocket. NASA itself, Kennedy Space Center, we launched a rocket called Bumper 8 right after 1946 when he came over. Obviously, Sputnik scared the heck out of not only Americans. They thought if America could, Russia could send a small ball, 150 pounds. Now they could put bombs on America, So basically, that really spurred what I call it as a trigger. That really was a fear of survival for Americans. Sputnik was an unknown threat, and we really wanted to compete against the Russians more, but we wanted to survive first, And that's where Project Mercury started. And really, our goal was to put a man in space, just like the Russians were planning to do already. They were beating us the heck out of, every single project they worked on, they beat us. Then started the Project Gemini. So in Project Mercury, we had only one person going up. Now Project Gemini, we wanted to do a little bit more of EVA or vehicle. We go outside the vehicle and do some emergency operations. So that's called EVA. We were developing spacesuits. We were randoming with the rockets, 2 rockets meeting together in space, docking, undocking operations, many of these things. Now we started sending 2 people to space. Now, Alan Shepard was the first American to go into space. Obviously, you're second really after Yuri Gagarin. But, that was quintessential for NASA to say that, okay, we have to put somebody in space, even if it was only for 15 minutes and stuff like that. Now, NASA was barely 8 years old. It was founded in 58. I was born in 53. So NASA is a sort of younger brother to me. Now it's part of my life for more than 30 years. We didn't even have a powerful rocket, no lunar lander, no idea where to land, what soil conditions were there, no spacesuits, no EVA training, docking, and navigation tools. Nothing was there for us. And suddenly our president says, we have to go to space. Then we were like looking at right around 1961, JFK made the speech, and right after that, we put John Glenn in space. So he went around 3 times around the Earth, and that was really something extraordinary for NASA to be doing it. Now, Gemini 11 launched with a lot of additional stuff. Not only we did docking and stuff like that, but also we went. It was the highest point in space mankind had traveled, like almost 900 miles, and compared to that, the shuttle nowadays goes about 300 to 380, 400 miles up in space. We did the longest walk and stuff like that. Incidentally, the first picture they took was right over Africa. That's where the mankind originated, as you know, going back 100,000 years ago or so. It's very interesting aspect of how a bird's eye view can tell more about Earth, than just looking at the Earth from, your hometown or something like that. I'm a great believer in looking from a bird's eye viewpoint, and it's important that mankind go to space for benefit of Earth. So we have a program in NASA called Of the Earth for the Earth. Now, in between, we did send a lot of surveyors, probes, robotic aircrafts, spacecrafts, which would land and try to get some data and stuff like that on landing issues, soil issues, and many other issues. So basically, if you want to say that, you crawl, you walk, you run, then fly. That's the philosophy NASA always followed. And that's one thing I tell all the kids to nowadays, that they want to fly, but they don't know how to crawl. And that's not the right thing to do. So we had robotic surveyors. We had people going into space, not landing on the moon, but at least understanding how to dock and undock and do, extravehicular activities like we did on the Gemini program. Now, rocket launching, I called World War III with gravity, really, with the hidden hazards, both on the ground. It's a bomb, really. Liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen. It's a bomb, literally. That's what John Young, one of our astronauts, said. NASA, you're crazy to put me on this rocket and light my bottom, with a hydrogen bomb underneath. But liquid rocket engine for Apollo was more like liquid kerosene as well as liquid oxygen. But still, as you know, we have many hazards even with the liquid oxygen too. Now, yeah, NASA is lucky many times, but sometimes we goof up, and we're. Let me tell you, launching rockets is not an easy job. I call it like I tell people, it's not like flipping burgers or flipping pizza. This is the most dangerous job in the world. We're launching real humans. That's even added more stuff. So on the left corner here, top corner, that's the launch pad where literally, we had the Apollo 11 fire and we killed the 3 astronauts. Gus Grissom and his whole family was known to me, not Gus Grissom, but his family. And Roger Chaffee, his daughter worked with me. So things like that, it really touches you from a standpoint of, how can I do something stupid, put pure oxygen in this environment and, ask the astronauts to do something they have never done. So this is where NASA is great. We know how, we have fallen flat on our face, but we know how to get up and go. We never give up. And we have the revenge trade. Revenge attitude where when we have these people die on the job, we say, okay, for their sake, we have to fly again. So with that, USSR really was pushing their buttons all over. Then by the time Apollo 8 came, we had gone over the Apollo 1 problem and solved all the problems. Now we wanted to demonstrate that, we have to land on moon, but our lunar module was not ready. So NASA pushed our agency and people to start going to moon, even if they don't land, because CIA already told us that USSR was ready to launch. But what nobody knew was USSR or Russia was having many rocket engines on their rocket to the moon, more than 30 rockets. And sometimes, these rocket engines were not designed well. That sometimes the bolt would come off of rocket engine and get sucked into the system, and it would blow up the rocket. So first 4 moon rockets were completely shattered. They even blew up the pad, which NASA didn't know about it. And we were pushing our luck to go first to the moon. And Apollo 8 was our challenge to go to the moon. Well, it didn't. We never ended up landing on the moon, but what we got was one of the most beautiful images of Earthrise, as we call it, on December 25th, 1968. We saw the Earth, our pale blue dot, from the viewpoint of moon. I mean, this shot was never possible if we didn't dare to go, all the way to the moon, even if we didn't land. And then we found out that, yes, Russia never landed because they had many problems. But then obviously everybody knows now that the famous words from Neil Armstrong's mouth. And I was lucky to meet Neil and Buzz Aldrin both. I shook hands with them after, many years later when I joined NASA in '88. So the Eagle finally landed. And that's American supremacy. And we know how to not only beat the Russians, but we know how to beat the world. Because why? We have one thing, we have the team effort. The effort we want to put in is not 100%, 1000%. And we know how to do the best engineering, and we know how to do the best systems engineering, and we understand the whole aspect of flying and stuff like that. So we made sure that, we were the first ones to land on the moon. So that's part of the history. So, now comes really the NASA's finest hour, Apollo 13. Really, I call it it's more important than even Apollo 11 landing on man on moon. because this was a crisis mode. We would have looked very, very bad. Not only we killed the astronauts right on the ground even before we went to the moon, but now we are going to have an orbital tomb with these 3 astronauts. They are stuck about 200,000 miles, so just 50 miles away from the moon. And we had to abandon the project and saying, okay, we're not going to land on the moon. We are going to bring the people back. It's a similar story. I call it a successful failure. We'll talk a little bit about it. Just like Shackleton, when he went to Antarctica, that's a successful failure. Or a ship called Vasa in Sweden, it fell, first 100 meters it went after it was built. It was too heavy, it sank. But now it's making more money than, it ever sailed, And Apollo 13, it was the sheer intelligence, imagination, and ingenuity of American engineers on the ground as well as in space, to work together and put this best minds together in a crisis mode, A crisis in Chinese has 2 meanings, danger and opportunity. Yes, it was tremendous danger, but we overcome that danger. So this is the finest hour of NASA, not only NASA, but America, I would say. So that's why we call it the successful failure. Failure because we never landed on the moon, which was the prime objective or prime mission. We got the people back, astronauts back safely. So that was a success. So let's look at Apollo mission analysis. This is very interesting because I just want to give you in a nutshell, because there's so much material that, you go crazy understanding all that. So I put it in a perspective where you can understand it in 2 seconds, So you have the robotic precursors. I told you, crawl before you walk, before you run, before you fly. So you have the robotic precursors, the rangers, the surveyors, the hard landing, the soft landing, chemical analysis, taking pictures, how to impact the moon. Then we have the 3 major programs, the Mercury, the 1-man crew, suborbital. We have the Gemini, 2-man crew, EVA, extravehicular activities, docking in space, how to walk in space. Then the Apollo, real Apollo with the 3-man, lunar orbiting, landing on the moon, And then we ended up getting into Gemini 8 and Apollo 1 Fire, which is the catastrophic failures and the mishaps. And then finally success after 8 years. So that's what Kennedy said. We're going to land man on moon within the next decade. And it happened because America was resourceful. Americans were hell-bent upon making sure that we'll be the first agency or people on Earth to send man to moon. So that's what happened. But obviously, there are many, many failure lessons. So we keep on recycling this. So this applies to your life as well as I've made a lot of mistakes in my own life and I'm continuously learning. So there is no end to a learning. It's a continuous loop, basically. Now, this is a different picture talking about the same thing. We're talking a little bit about Henry Petrosky, one of the famous authors of failure analysis. He says design is a human activity and it's always an imperfect one. Everything we designed has limitations and flaws. So when I design a cookie jar and you come up with a better cookie jar, then that's innovation. That's what we call it. We found out Ben doesn't like my cookie jar. He comes up with a different cookie jar so nobody can put their hand in there. And that's exactly what we call as innovation. So the role played by and the reaction to the failures we anticipate is critical in the success in future, basically. So what we have to understand is how the failures and the success interplay in not only moon landing, but many, many other things. Like, we learn more from one failure than 1,000 successes. And definitely I can vouch on that because I've been part of the Columbia and Challenger accident. And, that was very bad days for NASA. And we've been there. So iceberg model of failure, again, different perspective. So failure is an unacceptable difference between the expected and observed performance. So anytime you fail in life, make sure that these 2 things have to meet. So we had the Apollo 8 to 11 successful launch. Then we had the near miss failures, which are unwanted consequences. So iceberg, you see more down below the surface than up on the top. So here is what we see on the top. Apollo 1 Fire. These are real hazards and catastrophic failures. You can also put Columbia and Challenger in there, but we are just talking about one program today. So I look at success, failure, and successful failure as 3 sides of a coin. I call it the heads, the success, the tails, the failure. And edge the successful failure, basically. We learn lessons from failure. So when you go and go through a maze, you map the maze, you go left and then you can't go any more, you turn right and then go right. So we keep on mapping the maze very fast. It's the 2D model. And more you go through that, and more you learn, more faster you can analyze the maze, and there are deviations, there are detours, there is diversions, but in the end, you map the maze faster. That's exactly what failure is. So in Apollo 1 pad fire, definitely, we made a big boo-boo there, we were doing a plugs out test or a full scale testing of the module. And then, we had full, oxygen in there. And definitely, it burned because of a shaft, a cable, there are hundreds of feet of cable there. And one of the cables was bad because people are walking on it, things like that. So Apollo 11 landing, great success. So here we have a classic failure, not total failure, it's a catastrophic failure, killing people, killing humans, it's catastrophic. Now we have success, great success, with one small step for man, and this picture is very profound. I can just show this picture anywhere in the world and people know what it means, This is exactly what I mean by like a shadow of my Ingenuity helicopter flying on Mars. You just show the shadow and people know what it is, And that's how powerful statements NASA makes, Successful failure, again, we have problem with these famous words everybody knows now. Houston, we have had a problem, but yeah, we always have animosity between Houston and Kennedy. Houston controls what happens after launch, T+6 seconds. So we always hate Houston, So we say, Houston, you have a problem, but Kennedy, we have a solution. So we always fight among ourselves. So let's take a look at leadership lessons now. Again, I just want to highlight a few of the lessons so that way you can really appreciate what we are talking about. So these are 10 or 11 lessons I collected from various books and reading magazines and many places. You won't get all this in one area. So, you can have this for yourself or give it to anybody. This is free for all. So adaptive leader, Von Braun was one of the real big adaptive leaders because he used to know how to solve problems. And, he already was looking for building International Space Station even when we were going to the moon, basically. And he focused, he looked at from a 30,000 feet, a bird's eye view of the problem, not just looking at the problem when it meets the eye. No, he was always thinking forward. And he said also, just like Leonardo da Vinci, who is my favorite leader, he always said, flying is not for me, let it be for others. So Von Braun said the same thing. He said, if space flight is not for me, let's do it for others, basically. So he always looked outside for ideas and he adapted to the environment. Even when one of the small engineers in NASA said, look, Mr. Von Braun, you can't take a big rocket and land on the moon. He had to back out of that, because, they were planning to do what they call as Earth orbit rendezvous, but now we did a lunar orbit rendezvous, which meant that as the rocket went up, we were trying to get rid of the parts which we don't need and only land the lightweight rocket parts like the lunar module on the moon. Otherwise, we couldn't come back. So that's a great setback for people like Von Braun, but he went along with the same kid. JFK was totally visionary. He looked at, he was always thinking about how to bring America together, and he was a visionary. And visionaries always come up with these great goals, smart goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely, And so he gave America a time, 10 years. In fact, people tell me now that Kennedy didn't even himself believe that America would land man on the moon by 10 years. But what was important was, he chose to repeat the words saying, we chose to go to the moon, not because they're easy, but it's hard, and that spurred the whole country into action. Innovation by James Webb, these are the people I collected also who were really instrumental in getting the Apollo going. When James Webb was a manager, he didn't understand the technical part. He hired other people to his team, like Dryden and Siemens, and they were all people who were having specialties. So he always had a triad of people working with him and stuff like that. So organizational design and stuff like that is very important in NASA. We are always, like, as an engineer, I always could do whatever I wanted, it was free for all. You come up with your innovation and apply it. And if it doesn't work, keep on trying. That's how I was. And they never, told me not to do something, basically. Chris Kraft was a sort of came up with the idea of locus of control, because many times one person with the most knowledge and most information should decide what happens. When John Glenn went into space, they had some issues and they wanted to bring him back, although he could have continued for more revolutions or going around orbits around the Earth. But Chris Kraft was overruled by NASA management, and then one time, Chris Kraft said, he went to the president of the United States and said, look, this cannot happen, because people with not much amount of information are making decisions, and you can't do that. And so in the end, he got a letter from the executive order, CFR 1214-7030. It's an executive order which says that even the president of the United States cannot tell the shuttle or Apollo rocket to come down. So it's like amazing power in one person, and which is the right thing to do. When you have the most information, you decide what to do, and that's what later on, like Von Braun did also. We have what we call as a T-shaped leader, very important. The horizontal line talks about, the vertical line is the depth of skill in one particular area, which is the rockets for Von Braun. But on the horizontal bar, it's generalized. I call it the multidisciplinary knowledge you build in your career. It talks about knowing many other things, just not launching rockets. In fact, I'm a multidisciplinary manager because my background in America is in railroads, mining, helicopters, commercial airplanes, and NASA in 10 years. So now I launched rocket for 30 years, but I have tremendous background in many industries in America. So that's very valuable to become a T-shaped leader. Now, knowing social capital, like a good example would be Hidden Figures, where these three women were, we call it the human computers. They were led to believe that they can figure out the landing and stuff like that by calculations and other things. So we need to understand, we need to hire people who have the knowledge and the capability, not based on their color or caste or whatever. Like I was the first Indian born person to come to America, not come to America, but work on NASA launch pads. There was no Indian born person ever worked on NASA launch pads. Then later on, I got to launch Kalpana Chawla, the first Indian woman to go to space. And then today, even I'm the only Indian born person to launch humans to space out of 1.2 billion people. So basically, you look at a person and give them the opportunity based on their knowledge and capacity, not because they are your cousins or uncles or something. So this is social capital is very important. Now, reciprocity is very important. Appreciate your people, and you provide, like I got the highest award from NASA called the Silver Snoopy Award. This is a silver pin which goes to space and comes back, and the astronaut gives you that pin, and that means you are branded as the best engineer in NASA. So it's amazing that people, we need to appreciate who is working for us and give them awards and rewards as they go along. Did it matter to me whether I really got the award or not? No, it didn't matter to me. I would have worked because of NASA, but that gives you impetus to work even harder. And the person who gave me my award was, her name is called Pamela Melroy. You can Google her. She is a 4-time astronaut. I launched her all times to space. In fact, I have launched about 600 astronauts to space on 100 space shuttles. And Pamela Melroy today happens to be the #2 at NASA, reporting directly to the President of the United States. So I have a high regard for her. Whether she's a woman or a man, it didn't matter to me. It's just a matter of being the best person for the best job. So now, disaster leadership. Apollo 1 was a classic case where George Low, he kept on making sure that we rebound from the failures of Apollo 1. He took a demotion and started working to fix the problem. So basically, it is very important that we understand what happened. And once we know what happened, then we can, there is a lot of problems in society as well as companies. There's a group thing. Think, or your manager has 10 people working for him. They all say, yes, sir, yes, sir. And, you have to be the voice who goes against that. There is a lot of things called willful blindness where people associate, they forget the warnings of what happened in the past, like Apollo 1 fire or something like that. You would forget it. And that's what came to haunt us on Challenger and Columbia, basically. Now, it is important we also look at risk and reward when it comes to running the operation. And George Low was one of the persons who said, look, let's reframe the question. So basically, I think it's one of the authors, I forget his name now. He said, knowing all the answers in the 21st century is not good enough. Asking the right questions, So what happened was when we had Apollo 8, we were not ready with the lunar module, so we couldn't land on moon. So really, we wanted to go very close to the moon, at least say that, America has gone close to the moon and Russians haven't done that yet. So that's where George Low came into the picture and said, look, guys, if I can't have the lunar module ready, let's go to the moon, at least take some pictures, or I don't know, but we're going to be close to the moon, if not on the moon. So sometimes that's good enough too, reaching 50 miles away from the moon is better than, not reaching there at all, so not attempting at all. So always look at what the situation says. So asking the right questions is very important, and make sure that you ask the right questions, reframe the questions, think outside the box, as they call it. But more importantly, this is thinking like without there's no box at all. Now, let's talk a little bit about success through failures through Neil Armstrong. That's, classic example of how we learn from failures and how even in the last minute, we had a couple of 1202 errors with Neil Armstrong. We're running out of fuel. We had very limited fuel. We are having problems with the craft, lunar landing craft, the Eagle, and we had a lot of problems on the ground. Where we're landing in the craters. So Neil Armstrong took the control. And when I talked about locus of control, when Chris Kraft and Gene Kranz were really in charge on the ground, they did let Neil Armstrong take the control. Why? Because he had the most information at that time. He was looking at the moon. He was only 100 feet away from above the moon. So they didn't have that information, and the communication gap was almost 8 seconds, or more. So you had to send the message and get the message back to get a reply. So this is very important that we learn from these kind of mistakes and stuff like that. I think by far we talked a little bit about crisis and response innovation. So it's classic, if you fall down in a pool, I can give you a hand and pick you up. But what happens, if you are close to the moon? So, Gene Kranz said, this is a classic example of these three men were beyond the physical reach of humankind, but not beyond the reach of human intelligence, imagination, and ingenuity. And that's what brought this, 3 astronauts being in orbital tomb around the moon, and America would be looking like fools globally. We brought this man back, and that's one of the best crisis response innovation, on the dot innovation, because don't forget, we are going to the moon. So everything was programmed to go to the moon. Now we have to stop right there and make a U-turn when the vehicle is going very fast, and completely change the program to come back to Earth. That was called, it's not reverse engineering. It's like calling tops down management or something like that. Like there's a good example would be, I would give you a temple in Mumbai, very close to Mumbai. It's for a lord in India. The temple was cut from a big rock. So typically how you build the temples, you put the foundation and grow up, right? Here it's cut from a rock and cut down into the, to make the temple. And more than 600,000 tons of rocks were taken out. So that is kind of reverse engineering or reverse vision, we call it basically. So that's crisis innovation for you. So in the end, it's all about legacy of the Apollo managers. And the most important thing is they envisioned what was important at that particular time and forgot about everything else. And they only addressed what was important and what was not important. So with that, let's talk a little bit about career lessons. So that was for leaderships. If you want to become a leader, you can follow any of these as an engineer, as a manager, as a leader. This one is more for career lessons for your own career. I've used many of these in my own life. Clear objective, pick the right people in your job, support the best team players. There's no such thing as going to Apollo with me alone. No, it's a team basically. There's no such thing. In the team, the word team doesn't have I in me, I in the team, the word letter I basically. So I doesn't exist in NASA. It's always a team. So if I say I sent 700 astronauts, no, I didn't send 700 astronauts. I couldn't do it alone. It had to be my team. So I always expected the unexpected, unknown, basically. We have problems in life, just like art imitates life. Never consider defeat. Gene Kranz and all those people would have just gone home that day and said, hey guys, we are done. I can't bring those people back. It's not like going to, Los Angeles and drive up and bring the 3 people back. No. So they were ready to give up and go have a beer or something. They didn't give up. That's the positive mindset we are talking about. Plan B was a course correction, as we talked about, going to the moon, but now we're completely changed. It's an adaptive plan B, that's why it's called a successful failure, basically. So these are things we learn. Based on project management, basically, communication is very important. Most times, the verbal communication is very bad. So written communication is what we want from people. We have it, we call it AVO, avoid verbal orders, things like that. Not the plan, but planning is very important, So basically, why NASA was successful more than anybody in the world, is because we have the best planning managers who come up with the best plan later on. Like just imagine building something like ISS. I sent every single part along with my team to space. Not a single mistake. Every single part worked perfectly in space. There's no return policy in space. I'm sending a $500 million, $7 billion rocket on a $500 million per launch mission, and it goes to space, and there's a $5 billion alpha magnetic spectrometer which doesn't fit on the ISS. I have to throw it away. That's not our plan. We plan everything. Don't be afraid to change the plan. If plan A doesn't work, go to plan B, adaptive plan B. This is exactly what happened in Apollo 13 or even Shackleton. When Shackleton couldn't go to Antarctica, he brought his men back. He went back 700 miles to bring the support ships, get his people out. You should know risk. Risk is very important. So talk to many astronauts. 3 things are very important in my terminology. One is self-esteem, high self-esteem. If you want to do this kind of job and you're any job, you have to have high amount of self-esteem. Next, you have to take a lot of risks. By taking risks, you may lose, but if you don't take risks, you'll always be a loser. And fear has two aspects. One is called face everything and rise, or forget everything and run up the hill. So it's your choice. But I would say face everything and rise, and you'll come out. In crisis, you know how to delegate. Just like Gene Kranz said, sometimes he said, how do I put a square peg in a round hole? He didn't know how to do it. He said, just get it done. He sent his people to get it done. There is no I in the team. We talked about it. But in the end, it's the legacy of NASA is managing large projects. The International Space Station was built in 1998 from first module. It's called the Node 1. We worked with the ISS people. It's a $250 billion machine. As we are going around the world at Mach 25, which is 17,500 miles per hour, we have to send a rocket, rendezvous with it, and put the part there and send our astronauts on what they call as EVA, extravehicular activity, to put them together. It's an amazing feat of engineering. I don't think in my lifetime I will see something like a $250 billion item flying around space for 20 years. So I was very lucky to launch 100 space shuttles and work with the ISS folks, basically. So in crisis, we had Kranz. When Plan A failed, he said, let's bring astronauts back. Apollo 13 was a classic example of successful failure. We talked about it. Effective leadership always talks about quick decision-making, past experience, knowledge, education, communication. Everything is very important. And you have to do it on a dime. You just don't have time. We just had 3 days to get them back. That's called responsive innovation, really, and or crisis mode innovation, call that. So how does it happen? Why NASA can do some things like, I met the guy who launched Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. Now we are going beyond the solar system in the interstellar space. And this guy sitting next to me on a bus, I said, sir, who are you? What's your name? My name is Dr. Ravi. And he said, oh, I'm nobody. I said, you can't be nobody because you're sitting on my bus and it's a VIP bus. Only VIPs are allowed. And you're a part of NASA delegation here. He said, no, I was an engineer. I launched Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. I just fell apart. I had a heart attack. I said, sir, you launched Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 and you're telling me that, you're nobody. That's what humbleness is. So whatever we do, we are very humble, but we don't worry about our goals and we sacrifice everything for the sake of NASA, basically. Even like my wife says, if I cut Ravi, there's no blood coming out of his body, only NASA comes out. That is passion, I call it. And that's why I wear this NASA logo all the time on my shirt. So anywhere in the world. So this is, I collected this information from, I think, reading many books and stuff like that. It's an interesting thing for you and me, basically. Building upon other people's knowledge is very important. Connecting the dots, like what Steve Jobs did. The phone was there already. The internet was there. Everything. He just put two concepts together. Things like that. Learning from failures. How N1 engine. 30 engines failed. Actually, Elon Musk right now, SpaceX, they're doing 30 engines, which is kind of bothering me. Von Braun did only 5 engines, F1 engines. Shuttle had 3 engines. Well, 2 solid rockets and 3 engines. We have to have clear goals, clear vision, laser focused goals and stuff like that. Creative people, like digital twin concept. I was in Turkey last year, 2 years ago, and then Hugo Boss company, which makes clothing, they asked me to come and talk about it. And people are asking me and NASA said, why the hell you're going to Hugo Boss? What the hell they need to know about NASA? And they had actually the best digital twin, meaning, if you are a factory person and you are absent that day, basically what happens is they make a AR, VR image of you, and they can train somebody within a dime, basically. So Apollo 13 was the first case of digital twin because we had a person on the ground. The astronaut was talking to the ground control, and ground control was talking to space. So there was a team in space, team on the ground, and we had a digital twin so that we could find out how to put a square peg in a round hole. Building multi-dimensional knowledge is very important. That's 4 things, again, from engineering perspective. Find the root cause analysis of every single failure we have. Understand the systems or systems engineering or engineering of systems. Have a multi-dimensional or multidisciplinary knowledge and tell the story like what I'm doing today. So these are other 4 things. And the last 3 things comes from Von Braun. Think, believe in yourself, and dream and dare. So these are my 10 or 11 commandments. Again, I'll repeat it. Think, believe in yourself, dream and dare. Root cause analysis, systems engineering, multidisciplinary knowledge, and storytelling. And last but not least, have high self-esteem, take all the risks, and have no fear. So with that, I come with, I call myself an astronaut maker. Yes, no, I'm not the only astronaut maker. I'm a team of astronaut maker. So I'm writing my memoir for my daughter, who was born in America. I was born in India, grew up in many parts of the world. So she said, "Dad, write a book." And so I said, "What do I call myself?" I said, so my book's name is called In the Realm of the Astronaut Makers, basically. So really, I'm one of the astronaut makers out of many, many. And these are the traits one should have. If you have these traits, you can go anywhere in the world. You don't have to worry about it, getting a job or something. You can go anywhere and be successful. So, take away from Apollo program, we talked a little bit about creativity on the dime, passion, like we talked about after Apollo 1, curiosity, because we are always curious about what Russians were doing next, capability to learn, so problem solving, excellent people in NASA, we put everybody on the problem, they say. Think differently, yeah, many times. Almost the Hubble STS-125, which is the last shuttle to repair the Hubble, didn't go because we had a big problem on STS-124. You can Google it. So I fought against the entire management because I was not too happy with the problems we are having inside the flame trench, and almost ended up in the hospital. I have an 8-inch scar on my heart. Almost got fired for it, but I almost fought for my rights, and I was vindicated after 2 launches. So always fight for your rights, even if you lose your job, don't worry about it. Focus, hustle, audacity, tenacity, all this. So in closing, I think I took a little bit more time than Ben, but there is a small video. If you want me to play that, I'll play. If not, I don't know whether it will play or not. If you want me to play, it's only 3 minutes. You want me to play that?
Go for it.
Okay. Can you hear the sound?
Nope. And the video is processing really slow.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
You can share that later.
Do you have like a link?
But there are a lot of words on there. Ben, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't hear the video. And
okay, you can just read it. Read it off the text. Sorry about that sound, I guess. You can share the video with everybody. I hope we could read it off the slides.
That's fine. They can watch it. It's fine.
Oh, okay, great.
Is that the end of your presentation?
Yes, it's the end of my show. Yeah.
Yep. So go ahead and just kill the share screen. It'll be at the top of the Zoom. There should be a bar at the top of Zoom that says end share.
Oh, okay. I don't see that here.
No, that's okay. I think
Well, there you go.
There you go. I stopped.
There you go. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you so much. That was a great presentation. Very interesting. I especially liked when you talked about the locus of control. There are a lot of organizations that need to embrace that philosophy.
It's very important that we give control where it is appropriate. Whether it's a manager, it could be an ordinary technician. We need to give you a control. And many times NASA did that, and even today, if there's a job which I can do, I delegate, but I give him control, because he knows the job more than me, And obviously, I still have the right to supervise him or check what he did and stuff like that. But he's in complete control. So that's the beauty about working in NASA. The 30 years I spent, there was really no boss and employee kind of relationship.
Right.
We had direct access to many, many people. So I want to thank Moon Society for really giving me an opportunity. Sorry it went over, but really, I can keep on talking for hours on the space programming.
No
but that's not important. We need to make sure that your audience is taken care of. So I'm open for questions.
Exactly. So does anybody have any questions?
Well, I have a question, but not germane to the presentation, but I'm sure I could ask it.
Oh, go ahead.
Surrounding, and you mentioned about projects that you're looking forward to embark on. Do you think the nitrogen batteries, you think you may be forward in that respect?
Yeah, we're not going to talk about nitrogen batteries right now. That's way off topic. Like I said, if you want to talk about that, go into Slack, try to get some people interested in that. Unless Ravi has something to say about nitrogen batteries.
I think I'll take a pass on that. We just I don't want to. I mean, there's nothing I can contribute to. So
right. Me either. I know very little about them. I've read like one article. So. Any questions regarding Ravi's presentation, NASA in general, what it's like to work at NASA?
I'm curious about, in reading histories, I've always wondered why the person made the decision. An example that I found was in 1947, Dr. Vannevar Bush, President's science advisor, came out against research on the ICBM because he didn't consider it to be a significant threat because he thought the technology was simply too advanced. So I'm curious as to what you found in terms of why individuals decided what they decided, what if there was an explanation there within the histories.
I think I just want to say that I have I'll pass that question also because as I said I haven't done a lot of research on ICBMs and other things. My background is more in engineering and rocketry and stuff like that, and settled more on, like, as I said, I worked in many industries like railroads and mining. My first job was in railroads, by the way. Mining and helicopters. I built the Chinooks and V-22 tilt rotor. Later on, I moved to NASA and worked on the space shuttle. So really, I'm sorry that I can't answer some of the decisions made way before even I was born. This is 1947.
Yeah, well, this is more about the question of a historical figure. Why did they choose to do something like, probably the most common one would be, why did JFK decide to go to the moon? Things like that, and why the decisions that were made in that progress, what histories you may have found.
Yeah, I mean, that is straightforward, decision to go to the moon was more based on national priority. And what we found out was based on some of the people who were already working for NASA. And NASA was founded, as by the by, in '58. Basically, we had Sputnik by then already. And so basically, the impetus was to be in space, because until then, space was not a frontier that we wanted to look at, or basically we thought we could, control it. Basically, it's all about control, right? Because Von Braun and his people were already working on the V2 project, and so we knew about it. So that was one of the things we were trying to go with smaller rockets and stuff like that, and we always had many issues. So that's one of the reasons we got Operation Paperclip and brought these people. And now we knew that the Russians also had this similar kind of people, because about 100 or 200 people came to America and remaining went to Russia, and they started the program. So we already knew that if they could launch Sputnik, they will be using that as a ICBM or some kind of stuff. So we wanted to be ready with rocketry, with or without Von Braun. But when Von Braun chose, actually, if you go back to the history, I see a lot of World War II movies, and he really played America against Russia, really, and he wanted to show off that he had a lot of information. So he was a salesman, basically. He sold himself to America, And after what happened in London with the bombing of V2 and other things, America was definitely interested in him and all the drawings. So not only we got a bunch of drawings, but we also got a lot of parts. Put the parts on the railroad cars, and they brought them to Europe, and from Europe they came to America. So we had a lot of parts. So I think going to the moon was was directly a result of controlling the space. More than landing on the moon, it was controlling the space, and that was what I understand from talking to some of the people in the early part of the program.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, James, it's a lot of people don't have the imagination and the vision to see what's possible. It's like the old story about the guy who was running the patent office back in the late 1800s, who said, we might as well shut down. There's nothing new that's going to be invented. If it takes a special person to be able to say, hey, that could be the future.
Well, and also, we always thought of, looking at the Earth from a different perspective, and that goes back historically, because I travel so much around the world. Many people like Incas and the Mayas and many of the old civilizations, they always wanted to see the Earth in the eyes of the condor, as they said, the Incas. That's why they built their high mountaintop resorts, I call them, Machu Picchu and stuff like that. They were built way high, and in fact, I've climbed Machu Picchu and Wana Picchu, and so, yeah, it is, it's a different perspective altogether to look at Earth. And America was afraid after Sputnik. Sputnik really scared the heck out of Americans, and obviously NASA was not there then. But there was a precursor to NASA called NACA, which started many years ago, in the early 40s.
That was kind of my point with Dr. Vannevar Bush. Basically, he was backed by the Air Force, who didn't see the ICBM as being a significant threat, and that the kind of mindset remained. There was strong work for rocketry in the Army and the Navy, but that was focused on developing a longer range weapon and the cannon. So it wasn't until the rapid development in atomic weapons, going from a 10,000 pound atomic bomb to a hydrogen bomb, which weighed only a couple of 100 pounds, that the shift to realize that, ICBMs are a possibility. And then we hit it with Sputnik and realized the Russians are well ahead of us. And that's, from my readings, that's where the decision to go to the moon really stemmed from, was that there was a need to come up with a long-range project that the US could demonstrate their technical superiority against with the Russians.
Yeah, you're right about that. And also control of the skies, if you go through the history of NASA, one of the quintessential lines you see is control of the skies. And they were really afraid, to relinquish the control of the skies to Russians or any other country for that matter in the world, may that be China or some other country. So control of the skies was very important, because why? Because if they could send a Sputnik, they could send a ICBM. That was the problem.
In 1947, the history cited that the real concern that Air Force had was the jet engine, which is something we also acquired from the Germans. And so they saw that as the greater threat and didn't want that subtracted from by the rocket research within the Air Force. So it's these histories which link the development of one technology, which leads to another technology, which leads to something else, and how these decisions all move through time to create what we eventually see.
Yeah, that there are two ways innovation is possible. Like Henry Petrosky says that, there in 1500s in London or UK, Manchester to be precise, there were 500 different types of hammers sold, I mean, why the hell you need 500 different types of hammers? Because the hammer Ben made, I didn't like it, It didn't have a small, good handle. It was not tied properly or whatever. So I had to come up with a better hammer. Or maybe it didn't remove the nails, so I had to put something else there. So this is what innovation is about. It's a limitation of a design, prior state of the art. So that's one way. The other way is that a threat, imminent threat creates a scare in you, and that makes you look at other possibilities. So, I remember I was growing up in India, and my teacher would say, "Hey, Ravi, one question, one answer. I don't want 10 answers from you, And in NASA, we said, no. We don't have one answer. We have to have 10 answers. And maybe one of them is the best answer. And the rest 9 becomes new innovations, to solve some other problem, which we may not even know about. And, that's the beauty of innovation, and giving free will to the employees. So, yeah, you're right. There are many parallel things started. I come from Boeing background also, because I worked for Boeing 10 years. So Bill Boeing started his seaplane long time ago, right? Right after maybe Wright brothers or whatever. So, they were trying to develop a jet engine technology also, but, so basically they were trying to gather information from all over the world to beat compete, basically. Boeing wanted to be superior in aerospace or space, basically, airplanes in space.
Cool. Yeah, I think you're right. The threat is the major motivator for a lot of things. I mean, we would see lunar bases right now if people felt that we were threatened in some way that would require them.
Yeah, I mean, imminent threat is a big motivator for innovation. I mean, if there's a lion, I'm going in the jungle and there's a lion coming near me, I'll find something to hit it,
That's right.
or climb up the tree or do something, So I'll come up with 10 different ways. Maybe none of them work, but at least I'll think 10 different ways. So,
Right.
yeah, that's one beauty about, what we do in NASA. As an engineer working 30 years, I was given free will to solve a problem, so nobody bothered you. And if you didn't know, you come to the boss and get help. But if you know something, you go and do it. They never bothered you. They just told you what the problem was and solve it.
Cool. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, good question. Good question. Really, I mean, really, unfortunately, I just wanted to be straightforward that I was not born in America. I only came to America in 1975, so I'm not a born American, but I'm an American citizen for a long time. So,
Excellent.
Can I ask a question? How easy it is to draft a MOU with NASA?
Yeah, it is. Basically, NASA promotes a lot of new technology, and you can go back and check their new technology reports and see if you like something. Like say there is a development they made of some idea they introduced, to work on the space station. In fact, you can go and get that new technology for a small fee, and you can write a MOU and say, hey, I'm going to start a company, and I'm going to use this application, but not for space, but for commercial application. And it's called transfer of, commercialization of NASA technology. And it's very easy, actually. They are very helpful. You go to the nearest facility like NASA Ames in California, or something like that, JPL.
Well, it's a benefit NASA and also other governments. Because what I intend to do would benefit NASA and other governments. So it's going to go
NASA
back
will benefit also. Yeah, NASA will benefit also. If the idea is good and it has potential, NASA will, tell you, that we'll also like to use the technology, and they may pay you to use the technology. So sometimes there's a NASA developed technology, you can use it and commercialize it also for a very small fee. And as a very small fee, it could be $1 sometimes. So try to use that, because NASA's whole purview of NASA and why NASA was founded by, or implemented as an agency. As you know, NASA is not a department. It's not a Department of Defense or anything like that. You report directly to the President of the United States. So President is in the top box, and there's a vertical line. Then you have all the departments, but we jump in right above him. So our whole charter or task is to develop technologies to go to Moon, Mars. But then, if you want to use the technology and make a, vacuum cleaner out of it, go ahead and do it. Make a bed out of it, do it. That's what NASA is for.
I'm sure NASA, being the bureaucracy that it is, I'm sure that there are detailed documents on how to, start an MOU with them or all that other stuff.
Yeah, best is to talk to a technology transfer person in a center. So let's say you live in California and NASA, you live in San Francisco. NASA Ames is there. So you go to NASA Ames and find out, give me a technology transfer person for NASA Ames. And then he will say, okay, here's a person. Then you talk to him and he will help you out. So you don't have to worry about reading all the material. There is a single point of contact for each of the agencies.
Cool.
Each of the centers. Sorry. Yeah.
Right.
And there are hundreds of thousands of people who are born. I think you have to be a born US citizen, not born, but US citizen to be benefiting that. You can't be a foreign national,
And now, question: how easy it is? Like you mentioned, foreign national, like yourself, who came from India. How easy it is for a foreign national to work with NASA if he has good business projects in hand?
No, when I joined NASA in '88, I was a U.S. citizen by then. There are two ways to work in NASA. One is you can work as a contractor. A lot of times these contractors like Boeing, Lockheed, JPL is a contractor, all these people, they may waive citizenship and say, okay, if you are a green card holder in America, you can join NASA. Join the group and work on NASA projects. The other one is you have to become a citizen to apply for NASA work, to work inside a NASA center or something like that. So if Boeing, when I first came to NASA, I was working for Boeing. So Boeing was a contractor to NASA, but we were co-located right on inside Kennedy Space Center, which is huge. It's 140,000 acres. So, but I was not a NASA employee. When I say NASA employee, I was a government employee. NASA is a government employee. It's a government agency. So I didn't have a NASA badge. I had a Boeing badge, but I could work in NASA because I was a US citizen. So Boeing has the right to say, if you are a green card holder, you can't work here, and they won't allow you. So, but because I worked on the launch pad, they wanted me to be a US citizen. So by then I was a US citizen. By 84, 85, I came in 75 to America, and by 85, 86, I was a US citizen. So.
Any other questions?
By the way, it's very strict in NASA. So ITAR rules are these are international trafficking and arms regulation rules. Mm-hmm. So even if I make a tiny mistake, I can be put in jail for 10 years and $1 million fine, and that can go exponentially for, sometimes I used to get some foreign tourists, who would come on behalf of NASA, and I was their tour guide. And even if they go to the bathroom, obviously men, I have to follow them and then bring them back.
Yeah, ITAR can be a real pain. Yeah.
So it's not easy, but once to be a NASA tour guide and a VIP tour guide and a foreign national escort for NASA is like tremendous privilege and honor, because I was not only an engineer, but I could work with NASA as a public affairs person. So I could escort like Margaret Thatcher, Prince Charles, kings, queens, ambassadors, NATO ministers, all kinds of people around the world. So it was amazing. Even astronauts, families, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was. Must have left. So if people are interested, get this book called Infinite Worlds. It's not my book. It's written by Michael Suluri, but it's about STS-125 launch, which is the Hubble Space Repair Mission launch.
Oh, cool.
And that has a lot of information, simple English, written by astronauts, and written by me also, one chapter.
Very interesting.
When I was telling you earlier that, interesting philosophy that we built this book was, the picture was taken by Michael Suluri in 2009. And then he didn't know whether he was going to write the book, and he wrote the book in 2011. And then we retired the shuttle in 2012. And then we built the museum for the shuttle. And that's the time the curator of the museum called Michael and said, hey, send me your best 20 pictures. And he sent one of my pictures. So
cool.
That's how I ended up in the museum. So here is a $150 million museum for Atlantis, and right under that, my picture is on the wall. But cool. It's ironic that my picture is on the wall. Facing the opposite side is the a small place called Forever Remembered, and that is the memorials for Columbia and Challenger, and that's where the Indian girl, I guess I told you, I launched the first Indian woman to space. And so basically, if you look at the museum itself, you have like this tremendous success, which is the shuttle, the failure, which is Columbia and Challenger, and me being successful failure. That's what I call myself, I guess.
Very neat.
So,
all right, guys. I think we're going to need to wrap it up.
Okay, great.
Thanks everybody for attending, and thank you, Ravi, for presenting. It was very interesting.
Awesome.
Appreciate it all. And
come and visit us sometime. Yeah.
Would love to. As soon as COVID gets under control. All right, guys.
Okay, take care.
Well,
Bye-bye.
thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
God bless.